Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. In today's episode, we are joined by John Lencioni. John is a sports residency trained physical therapist, board certified sports physical therapist, and a certified strength and conditioning specialist. He is currently the physical therapist for the Anaheim Ducks NHL hockey team. John, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad that our schedules could finally kind of link up. We know we both are very busy, but so happy to be here. Love talking to you. So I think we're going to have a great chat today.
Absolutely, man. This is great. It's nice to have you hop on and share your knowledge on NHL hockey and kind of your journey, right? I think it's kind of a unique
Mhm,
journey, and we don't have a lot of things out there on hockey, and I'd love to
mhm.
discuss a little bit about your origin. So let's start with just telling the story about John.
Yeah, I mean, born and raised in the Bay Area from San Jose, California. That's where I kind of got my start. I was actually a environmental science major, and then a computer science major before I switched over, and I figured out that I kind of want to do physical therapy. That was kind of a journey that took me through West Valley Community College. That's where I did a athletic training internship with the athletic trainers there, and they kind of took me under their wing, and they saw some potential into me of kind of going into the sports world. And so I did a bunch of hours there, and then they they found a job with Ross Nakaji, who I think we're both dear friends with, at his PT clinic.
Yes,
And
we
so
are.
they were looking for a PT aide, actually the first PT aide they would ever hire. And so I got recommended for that position. And at that time, I was still leaning more towards athletic training, but I took the job and kind of learned a lot more about the physical therapy world. And under Ross's mentorship, I learned so much about the profession and what this profession could be, that I kind of fell in love with it. And so from that community college, I transferred to Cal State Monterey Bay, where I finished my degree in exercise science, kinesiology, and I knew from there I was going to go to physical therapy school. And so I applied to a bunch of different places. I actually got waitlisted at a whole lot of places. So the school I didn't get into school right off the bat. Actually,
Okay,
UNLV had me on their wait list, and I was kind of sweating it for a few weeks, and then magically I got my application accepted. A few weeks down the line, celebrated, told Ross I'm going to be a PT. And at
that's
UNLV,
awesome.
it was an incredible experience. Met so many different people that would influence my career. I think one of the biggest things that I learned at UNLV was that being a physical therapist is more about like who you are as a human being, and what you can and how you connect with patients, above all kind of like just the book work. And so they also ignited a passion for continuing education and being a lifelong learner. And so from there, being a person that loves lifelong learning, I wanted to do a residency. That's something I actually had talked to Ross when I was a PT student there for a while. Um, and so I applied, got into the UT Southwestern residency in Dallas, Texas, and then from there did my residency training. Had quite a few different opportunities doing clinical coverage with a local high school, and then with the Dallas Stars hockey team. And then from there, that's how I got kind of connected in the NHL world, and then landed a dream job with the Ducks a lot faster than I anticipated. My 10-year plan became a 1-year plan real fast, but life happens, and you kind of got to flow with it.
I love it, man. That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
a great story. So what
Mhm.
inspired you then to become a NHL PT? Like where did that origin of wanting to be a NHL PT come from?
So I think the start of that was during my time with Ross at Los Gatos Orthopedic Sports Therapy in Los Gatos, California. I think there was my first time I saw like high level athletes. I'd been working at the community college, working with kind of the college students there, and kind of I was always like a sports fan, so I connected well in the sports world. But when I got to that clinic and I was seeing a higher level athlete and kind of the process that went through, that Ross went through there, it was kind of I was just hooked. I loved high performance. I was kind of a strength and conditioning nerd, and kind of learning the rehab side of things, learning the importance of like doing good rehab to set a basis for like good performance training. And so just seeing how Ross interacted with the athletes, how much fun he was having. I think Ross is one of the most fun-loving PTs out there. I think that's something that I want to do. I want to go to work every day, have fun, do something I was passionate about. And then we saw a variety of athletes there, but for me, I grew up watching a lot of hockey. For me, it was easy to connect with the hockey guys. They were always super down to earth, and from there, I just kind of thought it'd be cool to work with hockey players. If you would ask me at that time if I'd ever like get to this position, I'd probably say nah, probably not. But I think that's as I got further in my educational journey, and I realized I was making progress towards kind of getting more and more responsibilities. I think it was something that I kind of set up as a goal, and then I started working backwards from. And so uh, I saw I saw Ross as kind of a person that was able to combine both like the PT with a private business. um, I was more interested in going to be like full time with a team just because I love that training room environment. I love kind of like being like in the trenches. And so I started talking around to other PTs that worked in the field, worked for other professional teams, not just the NHL. And I kind of reverse engineered my pathway from there. And that's something I recommend to a lot of students is if you're trying, if there's something that if there's somewhere or some place you want to be, try to work backwards from that and kind of fill in your journey from there. And so um, from the moment I knew I wanted to go the sport PT route, I started boosting my resume any way I could in order to kind of set me on that pathway. So when I was at the community college, I did not only did the internship with the athletic trainers there, but I was taking massage therapy courses just to improve some of my manual skills. When I got to my Cal State Monterey Bay, where I got my kinesiology degree, I was working as a strength conditioning student assistant. I was also like a team manager for the volleyball team, and I didn't really know much about volleyball at the time, but I knew how to work well within a team and support a team. And then from the strength conditioning side, I worked with a variety of different athletes, knowing necessarily that if I wanted to work at high level sports, it's important to kind of understand sports from a bunch of different perspectives, learn the mechanics, learn the basics, the foundational skills for every sport that you can, and then be able to communicate with different coaches, different athletes, different people that are invested in the process. And so from there, I kind of just kept on grabbing any opportunity I could. When I was at UNLV, it was not just sports kind of events that I tried to get like experience with. It was volunteering for fall prevention, Tai Chi Kwan for older adults. Just any opportunity that I could that was kind of movement based, but still kind of I could connect back to sports, just to kind of broaden my education, broaden the skill set I had. Um, and then from there, I also was lucky enough to get an internship, one of my clinical rotations with UFC Performance Institute in Las Vegas. And there I was able to get more of that pro sport experience, working with athletes at a very high level, working as part of a high performance team, and understanding the ins and outs of communicating with the other people invested in the rehab program or the process. And so that's where a lot of the experiences I had of like strength conditioning, team management, when I got into that position of where I was set in a high performance environment where you have to communicate with different investors into the process, you could speak the language a little bit easier, and it just made for a more seamless process.
Yeah,
Um,
it sounds to me like you
yeah.
had a lot of different experiences that really shaped your career path. And it seemed like at
Mhm.
the forefront, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seemed like at the forefront it was this like mentorship of experience and people that helped guide you. Can you speak a little bit to how you feel like mentorship played a role in you being successful early on in your career?
Yeah, I mean, I completely owe everything I'm at today for the mentors that I kind of followed. I think one of the smartest things young people can do is find someone that is doing what you want to do and try to just learn everything you can from them. It's never easy because you're going to take a lot of your personal time. You're not going to get paid for most of the time that you spend with these people, but it is an investment into yourself. And I think that's the most valuable thing you can do is constantly while you're young, invest in yourself, figure out the pathways, figure out the tips and tricks of people who are already doing what you're doing or who are doing what you want to do, and then just hold on to everything they give you and go along for the ride. Um, every step of the way, I had some help. I mean, it was definitely a lot of work, but it's not just not it's not just who you know, it's who can advocate for you. And most of the positions I've in, most of the opportunities I've had are because someone recognized what I was doing and thought I would be a good fit for that next job, that next internship, that next opportunity. And so it speaks to more of being able to build a relationship with a mentor, not just having one, build a relationship with the mentor to a point that they want to put you out in the world because you represent them and they think that you're a good product and you're going to do kind of good work on their behalf.
I agree completely with you on that. I think that when people can speak on your behalf and speak highly of your potential, more your potential and your character, it goes a long way. And
Hmm.
I have to ask this. How did you feel you were able to build a strong relationship with mentors? Use Ross as an example. You've mentioned him a few times. How did you build a strong relationship with Ross, and how did that funnel over into you learning more from him?
Yeah, I think one of the most important skills, not just as a mentee, but as a PT, is learning your soft communication skills, learning to be patient, learning to listen to others, listen intently, and then also understand like the words you say should reflect your actions. And so I think that's something that's been helpful for me, and something at least some mentors have kind of given me as feedback is that we know what you're saying is true because we know you're going to follow through with it. And we love that. We love someone we can trust because we know they're going to follow through with the process. And I think that's something that I expect even with my patients. I try to be honest with patient education. When I set up expectations, I'm not going to try to catfish them or just kind of sell a product. I'm telling them the cold hard facts because if I set up their expectations, there's not going to be a lot of disappointment in the end. And they're gonna recognize the honesty I'm coming with in terms of the rehab process. If it's going to be tough, I'm going to let them know it's going to be tough. You're going to have to work hard, but I'd rather say that than, oh, I'm going to cure you in 2 weeks. Um,
Yeah, no, 100%, 100%. I think that goes a long way. Um, so that's kind of segue now. You've done a nice job of,
mhm.
of really giving us an overview of how you got to your position right now. But tell me maybe about what's a day in the life look like for working at the Anaheim Ducks for John,
Yeah, a day in life is every day is not the same. So that's what I love about the job. It's probably one of the most stressful parts about the job, but every day is a little bit different. Generally, I split my days into two different types of days. There's practice days and game days. Practice days, we're usually the staff is usually in here by 7, 8 in the morning. Part of being part of a professional sport team staff is that you kind of make the illusion that everything's always prepared for the athletes. They just show up and everything's taken care of for them. And so it's a lot of prep stuff. We like to use the term, we like to set the table for the day. So everything should be laid out, everything's organized, we're prepared. And then the athletes kind of roll in a little bit later, usually around 9 o'clock. They're coming in, doing their breakfast, lounging around a little bit, just kind of getting their feet wet for the day. And then they'll come in, they'll have their meetings, they'll go over video, um, they'll have individual meetings if necessary, and then they'll kind of float into the corrective room or kind of what I call the prep room. So that's something that I've undertaken a little bit more since joining the organization. It's just kind of, we have two gyms. The bottom gym we set up as a prep room where they're doing kind of I guess, buzzword corrective exercises, just preparatory exercises before their strength conditioning, things that are individualized, just to make sure that they're kind of getting what they need on an individual aspect, and kind of just tinkering with what they got going on for the year. And then they'll go to their normal strength conditioning, have their lift, and then they'll come downstairs, get changed, and go on the ice for practice. It's usually during that transition time in the morning. We're doing the athletic trainer is taking more of the prep work in terms of taping and getting guys ready for the day. And then once the guys go on the ice for practice, that's when my day kind of really starts. So I generally take the rehab guys on when the guys are on the ice doing their kind of on ice skills. And so that's when I kind of have my rehab plan set up. And the best part of my job is, like, it's not a defined time. If I want to work 2 hours with a guy, I'll work 2 hours with a guy. If it's just 30 minutes today, it's just 30 minutes. It's going to be whatever it's needed. And I think that's one of the most exciting things for me, is that every day I get to dictate how I want to treat. And so I'll work with the athlete for however long is needed. And then guys will start coming off the ice, and then we'll just do post-practice treatments. And then the guys are generally out usually 1 or 2 o'clock. And then if we need to go over other things as a sports medicine team, or if you have any meetings, or if we just want to work out, we can do that for kind of the remainder of the day. And then usually we're out of here 3 at the latest, and then maybe 5 or 6 if we're kind of messing around, have other things going on. So that's kind of a practice day. A game day is a little bit longer, just because we have a morning skate. And so generally we're coming in around the same time, 7, 8, guys roll in. It's a little bit more quicker because they're not going to do a lift. They're just coming in, getting some pre-treatments, going on the ice, getting their morning skate in. And then they'll leave probably around 11 o'clock to go to their lunches. The guys got various amount of spots within the Anaheim area where they like to do their pregame meal. And then they'll come back around 3:30. And so generally in that open time, that's like our time. So from like 11, 3:30, we can either take a nap, we can work out, catch up on some work. And then 3:30, guys start coming back. They get their pregame treatments. They're getting ready for warm-ups. They go on the ice. And then when they go on the ice, usually during the first period, I'm sticking back doing some rehabs, or working with the scratches, whatever they need. And so while the game's going on, I'm kind of working usually that first period, maybe into the second period. And then I'm also just kind of watching the game just as that third person in if they need it. The athletic trainers are taking care of everything on the acute side, so I'm not really too worried about that. And so I finish up with my rehabs, continue to watch the game. The game ends, then we go through our post game treatments. And then we kind of clean up, and that can be anywhere from an 11 o'clock to midnight exit from the arena. So a little bit longer day, but those are generally how days go. I will say it never goes perfectly like that. You're constantly running around. If there's doctor's appointments, or different other appointments, I'm leaving, I'm driving players, I'm going back and forth. So it's a little bit hectic, but it's fun.
And then for road trips, do guys stay back for rehabs, and how does that work?
Yeah, so when I got hired with kind of a flexibility agreement in my contract where, depending on who was injured and like how many players were injured, I'd probably stay back. So in my first 2 years here, I've generally stayed back for most of the road trips, just because we've had a few long-term surgeries that kind of required continuity of care. And so on those trips, it's since the team's gone, I have more power in kind of setting up the day. So I'll usually work with the athlete, set up a time with them and our assistant strength and conditioning coach, and then we'll just kind of take them through the rehab that day.
Nice. That's awesome. So you
Yeah.
got basically 3 different types of schedules throughout the year,
hmm
depending on, what's going on, whether it's practice, game, road trip, things like that. Correct?
Yeah. Yes.
What's your favorite day?
Well, it is nice when the team's on the road. I will admit the day is a little bit shorter, and I can kind of set up the day. But I do miss having the guys be around. So it gets a little bit quiet when the team's gone.
Sure, makes sense. So what would
hmm
you say is the biggest challenge that you face working in a team setting, and how have you tried to navigate that over your first couple years?
Yeah, yeah. I think the one of the biggest challenges will always be communication, no matter kind of what environment you're in. Just because whether you're in a PT clinic and you're speaking with the other coworkers, or like a hospital-based clinic where you have doctors or other disciplines involved, I think anytime you're in a multidisciplinary team, you have to understand how to communicate well with each other in order to kind of have successful results. And obviously, being a little bit younger and coming into a new team, I have to come in and establish myself. And I think part of that process is learning how other people works and learning other people's strengths. I think one of the things we do really well here is we play to each other's strengths, and we don't have a lot of egos around here. And so that's where, like, we do have a manual therapist, and who's, like, I'll admit his manual skills are probably better than mine. So like, even if I'm doing a rehab and I'm in charge of the rehab, I'm going to let the manual therapist take care of that athlete, because that's going to be the highest level of care. If one of our athletic trainers is a little bit better with like the return to skate biomechanics, just because they've had so much experience doing that, I'm going to let them take the head there. And so I think it's something that we've had to come together, and we've worked together enough at this point to understand where each other's strengths at. Um, I think we've gotten to a good process. But what I mean, it wasn't easy when I first got here, or when other when during the other hiring processes. Um,
Mhm.
but it's something that we've kind of come together on, and I think we work really well as a team.
Yeah, I think that's most teams, most team settings in general. I would even say in the private sector, we have a unique setup where we have a performance staff and skills trainers in the building and the sports medicine staff. And I think that it always kind of starts off where you're almost feeling siloed until you start to get to know somebody and start to understand what they're very good at, what they're not good at. And it's going to constantly change, but eventually that
Mhm.
becomes more intermeshed. But you're right, it's about making sure that people are playing to their own strengths, but there's constant continuity between the one that is maybe taking on one role and the other one that's taking a step back, but also still communicating along the way. So, what would you say then, based on your experience so far? What traits do you feel like aspiring sports physical therapists need to have if they want to work in pro hockey?
I think resilience is something that, at least for me, is something that I know I've practiced a lot with, just in terms of being adaptable to all the different stresses that are a part of being a physical therapist at a high level. I think a lot of students don't necessarily think about their future career in terms of they just get to physical therapy school, they want to graduate and think, oh, I'm a PT now. Um, Versus, I think if you think through the process of, like, all right, what are my non-negotiables as a PT? Like, what setting I want to practice in, what population I want to work with. Do I want to have to document a specific way? Do I have to want to bill insurance? If you think of your non-negotiables, and then find that job that you want to do, then it's all about applying yourself to get there. And the road to get there is not going to be easy. And I think that's where resilience comes in, as it's going to be something that continues to motivate you despite all the hardship, despite all the adversity. I think you're going to learn a lot from the adversity, and the ability to take adversity and turn it into education and turn it into growth, I think will help a student kind of get to that next level. Seeing those failures as an opportunity to get better, seeing that adversity, seeing those times where things are tough, you're going to have to spend long hours, you're going to have to take another course, you're going to have to pursue another certification. I think if you can get invested in the process and not necessarily just constantly think about the destination. The destination is important to think about because it's going to guide the pathway, but being invested in the process and staying with the process, I think that resilience really will help students kind of be successful.
I like that. Invest in the process. I think that's a great little tidbit for people, especially aspiring sports PTs that want that new path that they're aspiring to get to. What other resources would you say are important for, again, aspiring sports clinicians that want to work in pro hockey? What resources would you recommend?
Um, from a resource aspect, I mean, I think I tapped into the strength and conditioning world just because uh, at least one of my philosophy on like how I do rehab is kind of reverse engineer it. And so my job is to prepare someone for strength conditioning or on ice skill work. And so I know the destination of where they have to be. And so I have to go back and build from there and kind of assess like, am I building a functional, structural, sound person in order to tolerate the stimuli that they're going to have to tolerate at that level. And so um, for me, I looked at a lot of pro hockey strength conditioning specialists, see how they program, see kind of the strategies they used for high performance, and then I set my rehabs up a lot to kind of mimic that, to make sure that they're able to tolerate those foundational movements or workloads in order to get to that performance side of things. And so Mike Potenza was a big one. He used to be the Sharks strength and conditioning coach. Now he's with the Golden State Warriors. Um, Kevin Neal out in Boston puts out a lot of good stuff. Um, Anthony Donskoff is another name that does some good work on the strength conditioning side. So just taking other people's resources and then kind of building your own philosophy from there.
That's awesome. Great resources. Love that. I think that'll help a lot of people. So I have two final
Mhm.
questions for you, John. The first question is more of a personal question. Do you watch the Mighty Ducks on repeat over and over again to prepare yourself for the day?
Every day, quack, quack,
Every day.
quack.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
hmm
What's the best Mighty Ducks movie? One, two, or three?
One, just the original.
You
It's
got to go with the
it's
original, right?
yeah, it sets the stage.
I love it. All right,
Yeah.
second question, more serious question. All right, final question.
hmm
You mentioned some things for aspiring sports PTs. You mentioned resilience. What about
hmm
once you're there? So once you're there as an NHL PT, what do you feel like is the key to success as an NHL physical therapist?
I think the key to success, I think, and it's not just as a sports PT in the NHL. I think it's for most PTs is not to get complacent and become a lifetime learner. I think if you can find a job that you're passionate about, it becomes really easy to continue that continuing education process. Always trying to refine your skills, always trying to see what's out there. I think being able to scour and simplify is one of those things that will help you be successful, just because there's so much when you go through residency. If when you just graduate you realize you just don't know so much about being a PT, the more you can kind of refine your searches, the more when you kind of can condense all that information and try to create simple philosophies or simple constructs from them. I think that's when you start kind of being a little bit more confident in your skills. Um, but then you also are always checking yourself. Am I up to date? Am I providing the best care? And I think if you continue to hold yourself to high standard, I think that's gonna kind of help keep you sane in the long run.
That's awesome. John, it's been a pleasure having you on. I appreciate your wealth of knowledge and your time coming on the podcast today. I think a lot of people will get a lot out of it. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been an enjoyable process, and I look forward to seeing all the other content you put on.